You're standing in the service bay, keys in your hand, and the man behind the counter has just slid a bill across to you. £400, maybe more. And the whole time he was talking, there was a fix sitting on your very car that would have cost you nothing at all. Not £40. Not four. Nothing. Here's the claim I'm going to prove to you today. Right now, on millions of cars driving around Britain, there are safety fixes that the manufacturer is legally required to carry out for free, forever, no matter how old the car is or how many owners it has had. And most people never claim them because nobody at the dealership is in any hurry to bring it up. This isn't a rumor. It's built into a code of practice that has existed since 1979, and it's been quietly working against your wallet ever since. Stay with me, because near the end, I'm going to show you the exact free tool, run by a government agency, that tells you in about 30 seconds whether your car has an unfixed recall waiting on it this very minute. You don't need a mechanic. You don't need money. You need the number plate that's already on your car and about half a minute of your time. I'll be honest with you. For most of my life, I was the perfect customer, the kind they love. I bought new when I could have fixed. I paid the main dealer prices because I thought that meant safety. And I remember standing on the forecourt of a garage just outside Coventry, a few springs back, waiting on my car, watching a young lad wheel another motor into the workshop. The service manager was reading something off a screen, and he looked at the owner and said, "While it's in, we'll sort that other thing too." And the owner said, "What other thing?" And the manager just smiled and said, "Don't worry about it, it's covered." At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I understand exactly what I watched happen. That man got something for free that he didn't even know he was owed, and thousands of people just like you drive right past it every day. So let me tell you what I found when I finally stopped being the perfect customer and started asking questions. It began with a strange little fact that didn't sit right with me. In this country, a vehicle safety recall never expires. Read that again. It never expires. In some parts of the world, a recall has a window, 10 years, 15 years, then the manufacturer washes their hands of it. But under the British system, if your car has a genuine safety defect that has been recalled, the maker is expected to put it right free of charge, whether the car is 2 years old or 22. There is no cutoff. There is no, "Sorry, that's too old." The obligation just sits there, waiting, year after year. Now here's what made me sit up straight. If the fix is free, and the obligation never dies, then why on earth are there so many cars still driving around unfixed? The answer, when I dug into it, genuinely made me angry, and I'll get to who benefits from your silence in just a moment. But first you need to understand how big this is. The agency that keeps the master list of these recalls is called the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency. Most people know it, if they know it at all, as the lot who run the MOT test and the driving test. But they also hold a public database of every safety recall issued in this country. And according to their own figures, at any given time, there are well over 1 million vehicles on British roads with an outstanding safety recall that has never been actioned. More than 1 million. Cars with faulty airbags, dodgy wiring, brake problems, fuel leaks, steering faults. All of them entitled to a free fix. All of them still driving around, because the owner simply never knew. I expected, when I first heard this, that it must be complicated. That claiming a free recall must involve forms, proof of purchase, arguments, being passed from department to department. That's what modern life has trained us to expect, isn't it? So I tested it. I took my own car's registration, and I want to walk you through exactly what happened, because it changed how I look at every vehicle my family owns. But before I do, I need to explain why this stayed so quiet for so long. because a free fix that never expires should be shouted from the rooftops. And it isn't. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. A safety recall costs the manufacturer money. Every single car they fix for free is parts and labor coming straight out of their pocket, with nothing coming back in. So while they are legally obliged to offer the fix, there is absolutely no commercial reason for anyone in the chain to chase you down and remind you. The letter goes out once, maybe twice, to whatever address they had on file. If you've moved house since you bought the car, that letter went to a stranger. If you bought the car second-hand, the manufacturer may never have had your details at all. And once that letter has been sent into the void, the box is ticked. They tried. Not their problem if you never got it. Think about the second-hand market for a moment, because this is where most of the damage is done. When you buy a used car, from a trader or privately, nobody is legally required to sit you down and tell you about outstanding recalls. The previous owner might not have known. The dealer selling it to you might not have checked, and often has no reason to, because pulling up a recall might mean handing the car back to a franchise garage and losing time and money before the sale. So the car changes hands, the fault comes along for the ride, and the paperwork trail that would have warned you gets weaker with every owner. And here's the part that really got under my skin. When you do bring the car into a main dealer for a service, they can see the recall on their system. It's right there. But a recall is unpaid work for them. A 400-pound service is paid work. Guess which one gets the enthusiastic conversation and which one gets a quiet, "We'll sort that if we have time." Now, I'm not saying every garage buries it. Some are honest as the day is long, and they'll flag it without being asked, like that manager I watched in Coventry. But you cannot rely on it. You have to know, so that you can walk in already holding the card. So I stopped waiting to be told. I went and looked for myself. And this is the part I promised you. The Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency runs a free recall checker on the government website. It costs nothing. There is no login, no account, no card details, no catch. You type in your number plate, that's it. That's the whole thing. Within seconds, it tells you whether your make and model has an open safety recall, and it describes what the fault is. I did it with my own car, fully expecting a smug little "no outstanding recalls" message, because surely my car was fine. It was not fine. There was a recall listed for my model, relating to a component I won't bore you with, but it was a genuine safety item, and I had owned that car for years without a single soul telling me. I rang the manufacturer's customer line, gave them the vehicle identification number. That's the long serial number you'll find at the base of the windscreen or in the door frame, and they confirmed it in about 2 minutes. They booked me in. The fix was free. Parts, labor, the lot. I paid nothing but the drive to the garage and a cup of tea while I waited. And I sat there in that waiting room thinking about all the years I'd been the perfect customer, quietly paying for things, while a free entitlement sat unclaimed on my own vehicle. Now let me answer the question you might already be asking, because I asked it too. What if my car is old? What if it's 10, 15 years old? Surely they won't honor it, and this is the beautiful part. As I told you, in this country there's no expiry on a safety recall. The DVSA is clear about it. If the recall exists and applies to your vehicle, the age of the car does not remove your right to the free fix. I have seen people get fixes done on cars well over a decade old and pay nothing. So don't let that thought stop you. That thought is exactly the thought they're counting on. But recalls, the big official ones with letters and press coverage, are only the top layer of this. Underneath them is something most drivers have never even heard the name of, and this is where the title of this whole thing comes from, because there is a second, quieter list of fixes that never makes the news at all. They're called technical service bulletins. In the trade, they just say TSBs, or service bulletins. And here is what they are. When a manufacturer notices a recurring fault on a model, something that's a nuisance or a cost, but that they've decided isn't dangerous enough to trigger a full public recall, they don't announce it to you. They quietly send a bulletin to their franchised garages. It tells the mechanics, here's the fault, here's the fix, here's the updated part. These bulletins are not secret in the criminal sense, but they are not advertised to you either. They live on the trade side of the counter, and unless you know to ask, you'll never hear about them. Now, why does this matter to your money? Because a huge number of these bulletins describe a fix that is astonishingly cheap once you know what it is. A modified clip, a revised bracket, a software update, a rerouted wire, a different grease, pennies of material, and yet the fault they cure is often the exact thing that, left alone, turns into a repair bill of hundreds of pounds a year or two down the line. That's the pound fix hiding behind the 400-pound problem. The manufacturer knows, the garage knows, and you, the person paying, are the only one in the room who doesn't. And once you start asking, you realize the recall checker is only the first door. Everything I've handed you in this video is real, and it works tonight. But it's one evening's worth of what took me years to piece together, and I couldn't fit the rest of it into a video. So I sat down and wrote it out properly. 3 books, the whole method, with far more research behind them than any script allows. You'll learn the 7 noises a car makes before it costs you serious money, the word-for-word script to use on a service writer so the small fix gets done instead of the big one, the honesty test that tells you in one visit whether a garage deserves your custom, how to read the paper trail on a used car before you ever touch it, and how to refuse a lowball trade-in without a single argument. It's for the driver who used to look after his own engine and had that taken off him. If that's you, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment, the collection is waiting. Right, back to my own car, because that's where I proved every bit of this to myself. I want to give you a real sense of how small some of these fixes are, because it's almost comic when you see it. There are documented bulletins where the entire cure for a rattle, a leak, or a warning light that would otherwise have you replacing an expensive assembly is a redesigned plastic component that costs the maker a matter of pennies to produce. A part so cheap it's a rounding error on their accounts, but the labor to diagnose it the wrong way, to replace the whole assembly instead of the one small part, that's where your money goes if you don't know to point them at the bulletin. So I started asking, at every garage visit, one simple question. Are there any technical service bulletins open for my vehicle? And the change in the conversation was remarkable. Suddenly, I wasn't a passive customer who could be sold the big job. I was someone who knew there was a small job. On one occasion, the mechanic paused, went back to his screen and said, "Actually, yes, there is one." A fix I would never have been offered if I hadn't said the words out loud. Now I know what a good few of you are thinking right about now, and I want to speak to you directly, because this next part is for you especially. You're thinking, this is all very well for people who are handy, or who have money, or who feel confident marching into a dealership and quoting bulletins at a mechanic. You're thinking, I don't know one end of a car from the other, I've never checked anything technical in my life, and I'm not about to start now. I hear you, so let me show you how someone who has never done this before can start this very week, at no cost, with nothing but the phone or the computer they already own, and the car already sitting outside. Step 1, and this is the whole foundation, is the free government recall check. Go to the official government website, gov.uk, and search for the vehicle recall checker. Do not go to some random site that wants your card details, because the real one is completely free. You'll be asked for your number plate. That's the only thing you need. Type it in. In seconds, you'll get a plain answer. Either your car has no outstanding recall and you can breathe easy, or it has one and it'll tell you what it is. Write down what it says. That's the first job done, and it cost you nothing but half a minute. Step 2. If it shows a recall, find your vehicle identification number. Don't panic about this. It's a long code, and the easiest place to see it is usually through the bottom corner of the windscreen on the driver's side, or printed on a sticker in the door frame when you open the driver's door. It's also on your registration document, the V5C, the logbook. You don't need to understand it, you just need to be able to read it out. Step 3. Phone the manufacturer's customer service line. Not the local garage first, the manufacturer. You'll find the number on their official website under customer service or recalls. Tell them you've found an open recall on the government checker. Give them the vehicle identification number and ask them to confirm it and book the free repair at your nearest approved garage. That's it. You are not negotiating. You are not asking a favor. You are claiming something you are owed. And because you came in already knowing, there's no room for anyone to quietly let it slide. And step 4, the one that costs nothing and pays for years. Every single time your car goes in for anything, a service, an MOT, a repair, you ask that one sentence. Are there any recalls or technical service bulletins open for this vehicle? You don't need to know what they are. You just need to make them look. The moment they know you know the words, the whole dynamic changes. You've turned yourself from the perfect customer into an informed one. And it didn't cost you a penny or an ounce of mechanical knowledge to do it. I taught this exact 4-step routine to my brother-in-law, a man who has genuinely never opened a bonnet in his life and is proud of it. He grumbled the entire time. He was convinced it would be a waste of an afternoon. He ran the check on his aging estate car, the one he'd been quietly saving up to replace because of a fault that kept coming back. And there it was, an open recall covering the very fault he'd been paying to patch over. He got it fixed for nothing, and last I heard he's keeping the car another 3 years. He still won't open the bonnet. He doesn't have to. That's the whole point. So that's the free recall check, and that's the bulletin question, and honestly, if you did nothing else, you'd already be ahead of most drivers in the country. But I promised you something at the start. I promised you the reason this all works the way it does, the document underneath it, the thing that turns all this from a handy tip into a right you can stand on. And here it is. Back in 1979, long before most of us gave a second thought to car safety, the government of the day and the motor industry agreed to something called the Code of Practice on Vehicle Safety Defects and Recalls. This wasn't a law with a policeman behind it. It was a voluntary code. And that word voluntary is the whole story. The manufacturers agreed, among themselves and with government, that when a genuine safety defect was found, they would contact owners and put it right at no cost. It was meant to be the industry policing itself, so that harder laws wouldn't have to be brought in. And the crucial thing they agreed, the thing that survives to this day, was that the remedy would be free to the owner and would not be limited by the age of the vehicle. Now sit with the beauty of that for a second, because it's almost the opposite of everything modern selling has trained us to accept. We've been taught that everything expires. The warranty runs out. The guarantee is only 12 months. The offer ends Sunday. Everything is designed with a wall you eventually hit, after which you pay full price again. But this old code, born the same year as things most of us can still remember, contains no such wall. The obligation to fix a genuine safety recall just keeps standing, decade after decade, long after the industry rather wishes you'd forgotten it existed. And that is exactly why the knowledge faded. Not because it was hidden in a vault, because it was allowed to gently sink beneath the surface of everyday life. The letter goes out once. The database sits online where only the curious ever look. The bulletins live on the trade side of the counter. Nobody broke the code. They simply stopped reminding you it was there, and let the noise of modern car buying, the finance deals, the service plans, the extended warranties they'd love to sell you, drown it out. A right you don't know about is, in practice, a right you don't have. And for years, that's precisely what happened to millions of us. The code has been revised and carried forward over the decades, and today, it's the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency that oversees the recall system built on top of it. That's why the free checker exists. That's why the age of your car doesn't matter. That's why a manufacturer can't just tell you the car's too old and shut the door. The bones of it were set in 1979, and they're still holding your weight today, if only you know to lean on them. So here is what I want you to take from all of this, and it's bigger than any one fix. Somewhere out there, a fault was found on a car like yours. Engineers wrote it down. A cheap, clean remedy was worked out. And a promise was made decades ago that people like you and me would never have to pay to have it put right. That promise didn't disappear. It was just left quiet enough that most of us walked past it, checkbook in hand, year after year. You didn't lose that promise. It was simply set down somewhere you weren't looking. And now you know exactly where to pick it back up. That's the whole thing I've come to believe, after years of being the perfect customer. The most expensive words in the English language aren't "how much will it cost?" They're "I didn't know I could." Because not knowing is what you pay for, over and over, long after the car itself is paid off. And the people who profit from your not knowing are never going to be the ones to tell you. You're the sort of person who suspects that a good deal of what we've been sold as progress was really just a way to make us pay for things our parents got as a matter of course. I think you're right to suspect it. That instinct, the one that made you click on this in the first place, is worth trusting. So let me leave you with one thing to do and one thing to tell me. Before the week is out, take that number plate, go to the official government recall checker, and run it. It's free, it's 30 seconds, and it might just hand you back a repair you'd otherwise have paid hundreds for. Then come down to the comments and tell me two things. Tell me whether your car came back clear or came back with a recall you never knew about, because I read these and I promise you others will be reading too, wondering whether it's worth their while. And tell me which part of the country you're watching from, because I'd love to know how far this reaches. If you believe, like I've come to, that useful knowledge like this was allowed to go quiet so that somebody else could keep the change, then come along with me. This channel is for people reclaiming the practical things that were quietly taken off the table. Next time, I'm going to show you the one line to check on your own insurance renewal that reveals whether you've been quietly loaded with a loyalty penalty, the charge they add for the terrible crime of staying a faithful customer. It's hiding in plain sight on a document you already receive every year, and once you've seen it, you'll never renew the old way again. Before you go, one more thing. This video gave you the overview, but there's more. Inside the Old Ways Society, I walk you through the full recall check by hand, right where this left off. And you can ask me your own question. A real person, me, answers you myself, never a machine. You won't be alone. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime, one click, no risk. Now, if that surprised you, there's something even bigger you need to know. Millions of turbo engines are failing early, and there's a simple £1 fix that could save yours. It's starting right here.